Hey guys, what is up? My name is Megan and welcome back to Book Talk with Meg. So I'm here with my second recent reads video, which if you have not seen my first one, I will put up in the cards and down below. But since then, which was kind of like not so long ago, I read 8 more books and I decided I didn't want my recent reads to get out of hand. So I will be wrapping up the books I read at the end of April and beginning of May for you guys. It will go in order of the books I read, not like what I love most or whatever, just to keep it a little bit more on a timeline. Without further ado, let's hop on in. The first book I completed was Paper Princess by, why am I blanking? Erin Watt. This book is a contemporary romance novel, and A stands for new adult, which means that the characters are a little bit older. This is the first book in a series, which I don't even know how many books are out at this point. But this follows our main character Ella, and Ella has had a very hard life. I don't think she has any connection with her father because her mother was just like, I don't really know the man, I slept with him and whatever. And she's been living with her mom, going from house to house. Her mother has been strip dancing in order to put a roof over Ella's head, and one day her mother passes away, which means Ella is all on her own and she is under the legal age to decide things for herself. So she decides to forge a signature on her school application and to use her mother's ID to start stripping at a club in order to make money not to go in a foster home. One day a man named Callum Royal shows up and he's like, hey, what's up? I'm your legal guardian. You're coming with. And she is very hesitant at first, but she's kind of like forced into going with him, where she lives with Callum and 5 boys, and they are filthy rich. And basically this is a hate to love romance with one of the royal boys, and it's also her story adapting to a life filled with monies and riches and parties and drama that she was not used to having in her regular life. This book obviously isn't the most hard-hitting book, but it is a very fun contemporary romance read. I was trash for it. I read it in a day. For the entertainment factor, it gets all the stars in the world. I love the writing style. I love the pacing of this book. I just think that some things were put into this book for like shock factor, but they weren't really dealt with properly. Obviously this is the first book in the series, so maybe that changes, but I feel like there should have been a little bit more talk about some of the choices of the characters, because it kind of makes them feel like it's whatever, it's not that important, when in reality it does affect a lot of people. So yeah, a little bit problematic, which is why I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, but dang, this was entertaining and I'm for sure continuing on with the series. The second book I read is a newer release, and that is If I'm Being Honest by Emily Webberly and Austin Siegman Broca. I gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars, and this is a YA contemporary with a hint of romance. This follows our main character Cameron and the storyline of The Taming of the Shrew. Just like their first debut novel, this follows a Shakespeare play, and I must say I like this so much more than their first novel because I DNF'd that one, and this one was a 5 stars, so proof that sometimes it's just about what's in the book and not necessarily the author's writing style. For the premise of this book, we follow Cameron, who is a very popular girl. She's very pretty. She fits kind of all the standards to be popular when you're a teenager. And people also think that Cameron is a little bit too honest. She doesn't really filter her opinion on anything, and she can be quite brutal, honestly. And at one point in the beginning of the story, Cameron is about to tell this boy that she really likes him, and shit kind of goes wrong, and so Cameron is very mean with another girl, and the boy's like, you know what, like, you're a bitch, I don't want to have to do anything with you, and Cameron makes it her mission to redeem herself in the eyes of that boy. But this book is so much more than that. This book is about growing as a person. Cameron has one of the most wonderful character arcs I have ever seen. Her growth is spectacular and also so realistic that I was like, yes girl, you're going to kill it. I am loving the new version of you. This book follows Cameron on a journey where she tries to help people who she has wronged in the past. She's trying to make people forgive her for her actions so that the boy's like, okay, yeah, you're not a bitch, I want to be with you. But it becomes so much more than that. New friendships form and a new relationship forms, and it's so freaking beautiful. I loved everything about this book. I love Cameron as a character. I love the new friend she makes. I love the realization she has. I love the writing style, the pacing. This was freaking fantastic. I tabbed so much of this book, and it was very thought-provoking. I really love it, and 5 out of 5 stars. Highly recommend. You guys should read it. The third book I read was another contemporary, and that was Field Notes on Love by Jennifer E. Smith. This is another YA contemporary, as I mentioned, and I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Unfortunately, this did not really do it for me. This follows two main characters in a dual perspective writing style. It follows, I believe, Hugo and May. Why am I blanking on their names? Yes, Hugo is from the UK, and he had this girlfriend, and their relationship sadly ended, and she was going to study in America, and they were going to take a train together and visit America for a week on that train. She still gives him the tickets, but they're on her account with her name and everything, and they're not refundable, and you can't change who the tickets belong to. So Hugo decides to post an ad to find someone else with the same name to go on the trip with him, which is where May, our main character, who is a girl, enters, and they go on this journey together. See, that sounds fantastic, but the execution for me was somewhat poor. I hated the writing style in this book, and I don't say that often. This is a dual perspective book, which is my favorite kind of writing style ever. The issue with this book is written in third person, and I hate third person point of views, and why would you make two perspectives if it's gonna be in third person? For me, that doesn't work. And also, I just feel like that kind of put the pacing off of the book. Some parts I was like, yes, and other parts I was like, I don't really care. And this book is short, and I got bored. But I did really love Hugo. Hugo is part of a family where he has 5 other siblings that were all born at the same time as him, and that has kind of created his identity. So Hugo is kind of on a self-discovery journey of trying to find himself without being identified to his siblings, and I love that storyline. For me, it's always important that characters find themselves, and I loved looking at Hugo's growth throughout the week. But May I found May very boring. She's very stereotypical for a character, and I couldn't be bothered. So for that, I gave this book a 3.5 out of 5 stars, but really more of 3 stars now that I'm thinking. To change things up a little, the next book I actually read is A Care So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kemmerer. If you've been following my channel, you know I'm not a big reader of fantasy, but this book has me shook. I gave this YA fantasy a stunning 5 out of 5 stars, or actually all the stars in the world, if you'd rather. This book, I still get emotional when I talk about it. This is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and it is the first in a series, and I need the second book right now. I can't wait till January. Holy shit. This is a dual perspective novel, which was done so much better than Field Notes on Love, if you want my honest opinion. This follows Harper and Ren, and they come from 2 different worlds. Harper comes from Washington, D.C., and our world, the real world, and she also has a disability, which is cerebral palsy, and it made me so incredibly happy to see this disability specifically be represented in a book, because I do have a family member who sadly passed away, but had very severe cerebral palsy, so it was nice to see that a character could do so much with that disability. The disability was part of Harper, but wasn't Harper's full personality. She was so much more than that. She was very courageous, very smart, very hard-headed. I love Harper as a main character. I think she is both physically and mentally strong. She is so much more than a disability, and I love the portrayal of her character in this book. I think Bridget Kemmerer could not have done a better job at having a female main character represented in a strong way. And I also love Ren, who is a little bit more vulnerable in my opinion, which I adored. Ren comes from Emberfall, which is kind of like a parallel world to ours, and he is under the curse. Obviously, he is the representation of the beast, and every season he has to find a girl and try to make her fall in love with him in order to break the curse. Harper meets Ren because she interferes with the royal guard coming into our world to steal a girl to bring her back. Harper gets kidnapped in the place of that girl, and the story starts from there. I love the dual perspectives and I love how distinguished they were. Harper and Wren are two separate characters from two different worlds and they speak and think so different. And I loved seeing how that meshed together. Honestly, this book is perfect. It was just the right amount of action scenes and slower scenes and political scenes and romance scenes, and I just read this book if you haven't and pre-order the sequel because it's gonna be epic. I then read a middle grade graphic novel called Sheets by Brenda Thumler, and I gave this book a 3 or 3.5 out of 5 stars. The art style, in my opinion, is a solid 5 out of 5 stars. I loved the different color shades, I loved the color tones when we would be in the life of different characters. But the story in itself was very confusing. This is a middle grade novel about a girl who, I'm blanking on her name, Marjorie, and she basically is operating this laundromat, helping her family out, and we see her storyline and also the storyline of our cute little ghost here who kind of has a self-identity crisis and is introduced to our world and the worlds of ghosts, and he's a young child as well. He was sadly, well, he died when he was 11, so he's a ghost and he's still 11 years old. This is about like their two stories, how they interconnect. I don't really care for this graphic novel. I did like the story of the ghost, but I don't really care for any of it. I just really like the art style, and the ending was very beautiful, but the rest of it I don't really care for, so I don't have that much to say about it. I then read Hot Dog Girl by Jennifer Dugan, who is a debut author, which this is her debut novel, obviously. This is a YA contemporary, and I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars, but I'm still debating between a 3 or a 4. I think it's gonna stay a 4, but I had some issues with this book. This book follows our main character, Lou, who is working as a hot dog in this fairground, and it has like a few different subplots. One of them is that she's actually in love with the pirate of the fairgrounds, and his name is Nick, but Nick already has a girlfriend, so it's her trying to make her way and navigate that slippery slope, and also her trying to save the fairgrounds that she is working at from closing. This book was very funny, and I did love a lot of the aspects of it. Our main character is bisexual. She has a best friend who is a lesbian. Her best friend was a very supportive best friend, and I really loved the dynamic between the two of them. It's a very beautiful relationship. For once, it's not a toxic relationship, which we are all for. But I had issues. I strongly disagree with Lou's mindset for several things, such as that it's okay to break up a relationship, because if the relationship breaks up because of you, it's because they weren't really that strong, and that triggered me to like no other point, which for that I was like that's so stupid. Also, there's cheating in this book, and I don't find that it is very well dealt with. I think that there should have been more attention to that in the book, and there really wasn't. So these are like the two things that like pissed me off enough to like knock off stars. I did enjoy the saving the fairgrounds aspect of it, because it does touch on different things and different reasons why this is so special to our main character. It has to do with family dynamics and a lot of different important meaningful things, which I will not spoil for you, but this was an enjoyable read. I recommend if you're looking for a diverse book, a book that is funny, like laugh out loud funny, and a book that is just very summary. But if you are wary of cheating or that kind of aspect in a book, then I don't really recommend this one. We're almost done. We are down to the final 2, which the next book was The Very Large Expanse of Sea by Tahereh Mafi, which might be my favorite read of 2019 so far. I feel like this is a big statement to make, but then again, this book deserves it. I think everybody knows what this book is about, but I will recap it very quickly in case you do not. This follows our main character, whose name I believe is pronounced Sharin. If it's not, please let me know in the down bar. I would like to learn to say it properly. She does mention how in the book, but I still don't really understand. And this follows her post 9/11. This book is set in 2002, and it follows Sharin and her family as they move into a new neighborhood and into a new town. It follows her story all the impacts that 1911 has on her life, because Shirin is a Muslim girl who wears the hijab. It talks about the racism and all the impacts it has on her life, the ideas people get about her religion, and it has very important discussions. This also follows a romance between Shirin and Ocean, and this book is everything, honestly. This book was such an eye-opener, and obviously I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I read this book in one sitting, and as soon as I finished it, I wanted to cry and read it again because it has so many interesting topics and things I didn't really think about, and it made me reflect so much. And I also really loved the sweet romance in here. I just think this book is really important. It talks about reasons why people wear the hijab and how everybody is a different individual, and that we shouldn't put all the eggs in one basket because people are not all the same, and the impacts that racism has on our main character but also the people in her life and how that affects different relationships. This was everything, and honestly I highly recommend this book. Like, if you're gonna read any book out of my recent reads, read this one if you haven't yet. It's powerful. It also has a breakdancing element, which was fantastic, but overall this book is just everything, and so upsetting yet so beautiful. It made me feel a lot of different emotions, and it's just like, I can't say more because I don't want to spoil anything, but it's a very important read, but it's also a very fun read. And the last book is another graphic novel, and that is Everyone's an Alien When You're an Alien Too by Jami Sun, and I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. This is a graphic novel. It's overly simplistic in its art, but it's meant to be that way. I really enjoyed this. This has a lot of important topics and important messages in it. I just don't have a lot to say about this. I think it's very good. It was sad, it was happy, it was a lot of different things. I just think that I kind of got bored because the art was so simple, even if I know that was the point of the graphic novel, which is why I kind of took off a star, because my enjoyment factor wasn't 100%, but I did really get all the important messages that came out of this. So that's it for my recent reads video. Let me know what you guys are wanting to read or have been reading in the comments below, and I will see you very soon with another video. Bye guys!